I remember spending like 8 or 9 hours one day in the snow, plowing driveways, and I made like $1,000. Awesome day. I was like 13, 14 years old. Awesome. And I came home and I told my dad, he goes, "Whose tractor did you use?" And I was like, "Well, yours." He goes, "All right, I'm gonna see your money." He took half from the owner's cut, took another, I think like 10 or 20% for fuel and wear and tear. And he goes, "Here's your cut." And I knew better to say anything, but I took my $300 and I thought about the 8 or 9 hours I froze my ass off. And I was like, well, apparently you need to own the tractor, right?
This is my time. Hi, I'm Kyle Stevenson, and you're listening to the Assets and Orthopedics Podcast. In this forum, we hope to educate medical students, residents, physicians, and other high-income professionals on the power of investing, especially in real estate assets and syndications. We want to help providers gain financial intelligence with the hope of earning financial freedom. Please listen and learn so you can spend more time doing what you love with who you love. Enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the Assets and Orthopedics Podcast. This is your host, Kyle Stevenson. Today we have a special episode as we welcome our next guest. He's a former medical sales rep turned real estate investor and entrepreneur. He's the man, the myth, the legend, and my good friend, Mr. Justin Davis. What's up, brother?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for having me on tonight.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is good. We got the kids down and we can have some fun.
Nope, I've been watching your videos. Really excited to see what you build this into. Like we just talked about a minute ago, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, let me introduce you first to the listeners, and then we'll have you add whatever you need to. So Justin was born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. Like Robert Kiyosaki sold for Xerox before he became a great entrepreneur, Justin sold cars through high school and college to pay for school, and he graduated from IUPUI in 2012. He worked as one of the top medical sales reps in Indianapolis, selling orthopedic implants for Stryker and then Donjoy Orthopedics for years. He was 9 times quota achiever as well as 2-time rep of the year in orthopedic sales. He is sole owner of the 33-unit multifamily complex in Indiana. He also owns and operates Leaf Springs School at Geist, a nationally accredited preschool in Fishers, Indiana. Justin is happily married to his wife of 9 years, and they have 2 beautiful daughters. So, Justin, we're going to get more into real estate and your successes and everything else, but anything else you want to add to that bio before we get going?
No, honestly, Kyle, I think just for me, came from a family of 3 boys, got a mom and dad who are super supportive. Parents were tough love. They wanted us to go outside and get after it. We were not a family that sat at home and sat inside and played video games. We were outside all day long till the lights came on, and then you come in and get supper and go to bed. But I think part of that is, I believe in the power of just getting out there and working hard. I came from a traditional family of my parents told me to invest our money, right? You make money, you put it in the market, you put it in a 401k, you work until you're 65 and then you retire and you live a life. And I think it's what a lot of us are taught. Very traditional, obviously. But I will say my dad told me one time when I was young, not every step forward appears to be a step forward. And I think for me, I learned pretty young, short-term sacrifice, long-term gain. And it didn't really harmonize until I got much older. But I thank my parents for how they brought me up. And I think the foundation they built, it came up a little later for me, right? It came up, in my early 30s instead of, some people are lucky enough to have it hit in their early 20s. So it hit and here we are.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, let's continue on that conversation because, we'll get into real estate and all the things you've been doing these past few years. But, a lot of what you did, like hustling, working as a car salesman for years, I'm sure you did well in school, but you were one of those, you kind of remind me of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I mentioned a lot, but you remind me of the guy that's hustling, that's creating his own opportunities, not like, from my standpoint, personally, it was always going to be more the academic poor dad. When you talk about Rich Dad Poor Dad, I feel like your mentality has always kind of been that rich dad mentality where you work hard, you push yourself, and you create your own opportunities.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I had a long conversation with my dad who just retired about 2 months ago, and he doesn't know where it came from because, like we talked about, he worked until he was 62. He just retired, and it was instilled in me somewhere. And I think a little bit of mom, a little bit of dad. I had a car wash business when I was younger. I I had about 30 yards that I mowed at the same time. When it snowed, I had a snow removal company. Started with shovels, ended up with tractors. And actually, funny story. I remember spending like 8 or 9 hours one day in the snow plowing driveways, and I made like $1,000. Awesome day. I was like 13, 14 years old. Awesome. And I came home and I told my dad. He goes, "Whose tractor did you use?" And I was like, "Well, yours." He goes, "All right, let me see your money." He took half from the owner's cut, took another, I think like 10 or 20% for fuel and wear and tear. And he goes, "Here's your cut." And I knew better to say anything, but I took my $300 and I thought about the 8 or 9 hours I froze my ass off. And I was like, well, apparently you need to own the tractor, right? And I was 13, 14. But yeah, he got me into the car industry. Something that was really nice. He never gave us money, but he always gave us an opportunity to make money. So, get out and use the tractor, start a lemonade stand, whatever. But he got me into the car business. I cleaned cars for a year and I wanted a raise. And he's like, "Well, how about you try to sell cars?" I was 17 years old. I'm like, "All right, let's go for it." And I remember my very first night, I worked until 10 p.m. and I made a car sale and I made like $500. And that was like 3 times my normal paycheck. And so I made $500. I'm like, this is fantastic. And then just building upon that forever and ever. But I really enjoyed selling cars. It really helped me mold my sales approach. It was basically, like a Groundhog's Day where, every hour a new customer came in and you were able to practice and master your craft. And I was able to learn the word track. I was able to, practice and really just get better and better. And, when you're doing it at that pace, you're doing a sales call every hour, you get really, really good. So I ended up taking a pay cut actually when I left car sales to start ortho sales. And it was a long pause when I got the offer to start ortho. I almost didn't leave. And my dad was like, "You have to leave. This is your next chapter and start it." But yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, I would say your dad's not taking much credit for it, but just from those stories you just told, it seems like he should. He maybe wasn't purposefully instilling that in you, but it obviously it worked, and I really appreciate that honesty. Like, hey, you didn't own the tractor, so I'm taking my cut because I owned it. You got to learn your lesson. That doesn't seem to happen anymore, right? A lot of these kids have no obstacles out of the way. The parents will, basically be like, here's your lemonade stand. Oh, you didn't make that much money here. Let me add to it, right? You did the opposite approach. And I think the more I read now, the more I'm trying to figure that out with my own kids, right? 3 and 2 and 8 weeks. But instead of paying them for chores or good grades or whatever else, like figure out ways that they can add value, either with me or our family or somebody down the street, and that's how you make money, right? You bring a service or you add value to somebody.
I think we're both taking an old school approach, and we look at the people we're around and the way our parents raised us and the way their parents raised them, and we're doing pretty good. And so maybe we don't need to break the mold too bad. Maybe we just make tiny adjustments instead of a full course redirection. So no, I love that. I couldn't agree more. Our parents did a good job, and I just hope to do the same, maybe a little bit better.
Let me just start with this. Like, you were a medical sales rep. You were a darn good medical sales rep. I worked with you personally. You were one of the most, organized, most, type A. Like you know what's going on probably more than the surgeon a lot of times, right? So you just come over prepared, and you've always been that way. And you've had a lot of respect in the industry. You could have easily just continued to do that, right? You grew your territory, you moved to a different company, you grew that territory, you continue to do very well. So let's just start with the why. A lot of great books start with the mindset. Please explain to the listeners, why did you decide to get into real estate? And then we'll talk about the real estate that you got into.
Thank you for the kind words. I miss working with you. We had a lot of fun together. I never knew more than you, sir.
Yeah.
But no, I did. I had a really, really good career. And I think, I got out of car sales, started orthopedic sales, and it was fantastic. It was a really, really good change of pace. And I think a lot of the stuff that I did in car sales, punch at 8 o'clock at night and you work till like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I thought, well, this next job is a real job. Like I'll work 8 to 5. No, not at all. And I think part of that was easy for me because I was used to working, 60 hours a week and living on commission only since I was 17 until a year and a half ago. It's wild. But, to that point, I knew with increased sales and doing a really good job and working the right path, you grow your territory, you'd make more money, and that's just how your life evolves, right? You put your time in, you have to do a good job, right? And so I spent a lot of time, not early on. Let me back up. Early on, I took it as a job, and I knew it was a lifestyle because of what it took. And I watched a lot of people get hired and get fired or leave the industry because it's stressful. But you have to look at it as a true lifestyle. And thankfully, when I met my wife, I was like 3 months in, so she grew up in this with me. Or else, I don't know if we ever would have made it because you're gone so much, and you're on, it sucks. But it was probably the first 3 or 4 years that I did a good job. I was a quick study. I learned, but I did not put the respect into the job that I should have. I did what was needed. I went above and beyond, but I didn't practice my craft like I should have. I never took coaching well. I didn't like taking advice from guys, and I think a lot of people can fall into that trap of I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help, and that's not how we get better. And so I think it was probably year 4, year 5, and you could talk to some of the guys, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, JD flipped the switch. Like I changed," and that was when I started taking coaching. A good friend of mine and a mentor, Jake, manager at DJO, he pulled me aside one day. He's like, "Hey, let's work on a couple of things," and I finally said yes. And when we started working on a couple of different things and honing and practicing your craft, and I started reading literature and studying my competitors' products, that's when things changed for me. That's when I went from making, pretty good money to really good money. You started, converting docs and, being a leader in the office. That's when I noticed a major change in my life. And I think that was probably one of the first aha moments for me. I've had a few, but it was when, taking coaching, now I have a professional coach. Like I've completely swung around. I have someone that I meet with, once a week to talk about life and strategy and business. But trying to focus more on practicing your craft and learning. But what I found quickly was as you grow your territory, you need more of you. So you grow your territory, you hire somebody below you. So now you've got another mouth to feed on your team. They take a cut of it. You want to pay them well, so they do a good job. But if you grow, let's say $1 million, you make X amount more. Well, you're paying them most of it, so you get a little bit more money. So what do? You want to grow your territory more, and you keep hiring people below. And I caught it before I had a giant team because I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I knew my girls are getting older. I wanted and needed to be a dad that was around. And so I started, it was actually 2020, COVID. The very first thing that happened was they stopped elective surgeries. So overnight, our business is done. And that was the first thing. And then they trickled into others. And I remember telling my wife, like, this is terrible. I have no play here. And that's when I started thinking about the conversations I had with another mentor of mine in multifamily, who had asked me a couple of times to meet to talk about multifamily. And I was like, dude, I don't want to get phone calls in the middle of the night to plunge toilets. Like all the same BS that all of us have heard. And I called him and he's like, let's meet. And we met probably second quarter, end of the second quarter, part of the start of the third quarter. And we started meeting every Friday and talking through what we were trying to do. And, I said, I want to buy some single families. And he's like, that's great. I've had a bunch. Let's level up a little bit. I want to save you some bloody noise. Nothing against the guys that have single family. What I understand now, there's some really, really good opportunities. But I realized that for me, at least, with his advice, I wanted to look bigger. And so I spent the majority of 2020 looking for deals.
Yeah. I mean, that's a strong why. 2020 was very pivotal for all of us, right? To your point, man, it's like, that's when you realize your sole source of income could go away like that, very quickly, especially in medicine, which is something so strange. You would never think. It's like everybody needs medicine, but they could shut down an entire country. I guess got to look for something else. So that's pretty cool. And then the other point you touched on, man, is coaching, and I think that's huge. Having a mentor having a coach. I think a lot of people are just a little too proud, to do it. Like, I'm smart. There's tons of resources out there, right? And you were doing what, podcasts and reading books and doing all the things. It's not like people can just spoon feed you this stuff, but to have a coach to help, with ideas and bounce things off of, and they've been there, so they're telling you the mistakes they made so that you don't make the same things. What would you speak to on that point?
Yeah, I think the coaching thing was huge. When I started taking the coaching, I was able to turn what was a job into a passion, and it made a huge difference. But yeah, so coaching, if you don't have a mentor, I'd say get one. I think I have 7 or 8 that I go to regularly for different parts of my business and life. And then, I'm part of a really good group of guys called the Heroes Group in town. And we've got, 150 people in there. And there's a lot of guys and girls that have done really, really awesome things to their businesses. And just being able to call on people and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You can listen to all the podcasts. And I think you and I both got started with Rod Khleif. And Rod Khleif was great. And then evolving from there to even like Cashflow Ninja, just hearing different ways of making money. And then reading all the books, way too many. I nearly got stuck in an analysis paralysis, actually, just reading the books and trying to, well, if I read one more, then I'll really be good. And I won't make any mistakes. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to. Just finding a way to take the leap and get past it.
Yeah. Nope. I love that. Couple of points. And I think about, schooling now, and obviously we're going through that with our kids. So we're thinking about that a lot. And throughout school, they basically talk to you about, doing your own work, not working with a team. You're not using your neighbors or anything like that. Like, it's all about you and what you know and how you do things. But when you get out in the real world, the truth is, no matter what occupation you're in, real estate specifically, but everything else, teamwork is what makes this thing run. That's what makes everybody successful. Nobody could do it on their own. And so, schools, maybe in the past, maybe still to this day, do a poor job of really pushing that effort, the teamwork effort, because that's how you do all this stuff, right? That's how you succeed in life.
I think being willing to work with others, finding a way to use, I go back to Rod Khleif. He tells you, find a group and find guys with strengths. One guy's going to be your underwriter. One guy's going to find your deals. One guy's going to go raise money. Somebody's going to, lead the GC projects. None of us are perfect in all the different areas. I know that. I know I'm pretty good at underwriting, and I know I'm really good at overseeing projects. I don't want to go to people for money. That's not one thing. I can talk to people, but I don't want to go to people for money. And just in general, just working your strengths and being willing to know. And it took me a long time. It took me, 27 years to be willing to, all right, give me some coaching. And it made a big difference.
Yeah, good for you. Well, one more thing I was going to say, you talked about mistakes, and, everybody makes mistakes, of course. Sarah Blakely, she's the founder of Spanx, very successful. She tells a story that when she was young, her and her sister or her siblings would come home from school and their dad would say, "What mistakes did you make today?" So instead of, were you nice to everybody at school? Did you do this? What'd you do? Like, hopefully you didn't get in trouble. He was like, "What mistakes did you make today?" Because it was like, I want to encourage you. You're going to make mistakes. I want to encourage you to be okay with them, as long as you understand that you need to, fix it and do better the next time, and not make the same mistake again. But let's encourage mistakes because they're going to happen.
I like that. I need to put that into our rotation with my girls. Back to the lifestyle portion, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I now get to have dinner with them every single night, and every night we sit down and we go through rose, bud, thorn. And then, how did you help someone today? So your rose is your best part of your day. Your bud's what you're looking forward to, and your thorn something that happened that you didn't like. And then, how did you help somebody? So we try to go through 4 things, but I'll have to add that to the rotation because it's the same kind of conversation, the same way we're trying to raise them up. Of, are you helping people? Are you being a good friend? And then, how did you go out on a limb today? I like that a lot. I'll have to add that to the rotation.
Yeah, that's great, man. Good for you. Let's get into your deal. Tell us about your first experience with real estate investing, how you started it, and what'd you do?
Yeah. So again, 2020, found the mentor that had been trying to get me to be, part of his team, and of not part of his team, but he'd been trying to help me for a long time. So got the mentor, which is huge. We met for breakfast, and he said, you lay it all out there, and I'll lay it all out there. You show me, show me your money, I'll show you my money, and we'll figure out ways to make you better, bigger and better. And I was like, let's do it. Thankfully, again, I was cool with coaching at this time, or else I'd been like, you show me your money.
Yeah.
But I walked him through, like, this is what I want to do. I want to get a bunch of single family homes. He's like, all right, great idea. Would you be willing to go, instead of, 5 houses, would you be willing to go with one big property? I'm like, sure. Tell me why. And he walked me through all the big advantages, as we all know, of multifamily. And that was the first breakfast. And he gave me some homework. I immediately scheduled a second breakfast, and I came to him like, this is what I want to do. Like, let's go. And we came up with a number, and I'm comfortable saying, like, we came up with 200,000. Like, what's the most you're willing to risk? I'm like, 200,000 I'll risk. And he's like, all right, perfect. So let's look for $1 million deal. And he said $1 million deal. I was like, ooh, shit. Maybe we do, 2 $100,000 houses.
Yeah, it made you pucker a little bit, right?
Yep, it made me pucker a little bit, and which you pucker once, right? And then your pucker factor changes to something bigger. So that's something I learned pretty quickly. So he's like, all right, let's do this. Let's start looking. And I went home and I talked to my wife and I said, hey, if we're going to do this, I want us both to be on board. And, here's the reasons why. And we talked about getting out of the rat race and having property and all the benefits of multifamily. And she was like, all right, tell you what, let's do it. If you lose it, you got to make up for it. I'm like, deal. Like, if I make the mistake, I promise you I'll make up for it and then some. And so she's like, all right, let's do it. So I started looking the third quarter 2020, and I literally pulled out a legal pad and my phone. I zoomed out on Indianapolis and I typed in bank. And all the tertiary markets with banks, different Farmers Credit or, First Bank of BFE, those ones I phone called and then said, can I talk to your commercial lending department? And I took my notepad out and I wrote down the bank, commercial lending department. I put the individual's name, and they transferred me over. And I did this every single day for like 7 months, every day, except for Sundays and Saturdays, obviously, but every single day. And I did it while I was driving between deals because I'm still doing my orthopedic job. So in between phone calls for work, I'd be driving to different hospitals and make the phone calls. And I would ask for anyone that's behind. Do you have any distressed deals? Do you have anybody that's, you've mentioned they're going to sell, anybody that wants to, in the very end of their term of their loan, talk to me. And I just started asking questions. And my first 20 phone calls, I sounded like an absolute moron. It's practicing your craft, right? So the more and more I went through these phone calls, the more I started to sound like a professional, and I had no clue what I was doing. But it was just practicing and getting your word track, kind of like selling cars back in high school. Just you practice over and over again. Somebody laughs at something you say, you change it, don't say it again. And I had to cross off the list a couple people that I knew I couldn't call again because I sounded like an idiot. But then, I found some guys that immediately were like, yep, I've got this, this, and this. What are you looking for? And I had a word track. I want an 80s or newer. I want a slant roof, individually metered, and went through all these things. And fast forward now, I've got a flat roof 1920s building. Like, it's not at all what I was looking for. But I found the property in January of 2021. Same thing. I called a lender and they said, I don't have anything, but I just spoke to a broker that had a property that somebody's thinking about selling. Gave me their number. Her name's Julie. I called Julie and turned on the charm. I said, I'm looking to change my life and I'm hoping you can be the one that helps me.
Nice.
She goes, yeah, can you come up here today? I looked at my schedule and I was done at like 2:00 with surgeries, and I'm like, let's roll. My mentor and I rode up and I looked at this horrible building. To me, 1920s, probably a C property. There was broken down cars in the parking lot. There was, gutters ripped off, you name it. It looked bad, but it had good bones. The roof had leaks in it. Windows were cracked and glass was broken. The basement had some old dilapidated units that were, cockroaches. There was homeless people. We walked in, there's a homeless person down there. They were like, hey, you got to leave now. And this is my first time walking a property. Is this what we're supposed to do? Is this, I wanted to see like somewhere I would live. And my mentor, cool as a cucumber, he was like, "This place is great. They've done a really good job with it. You know, let's talk, but you have a number." And they gave us the OM in the rent roll. I asked for 12 months to give me the rent roll, and we walked outside, and he goes, "This is it." And I was like, "This is not it. This is shitty. I don't want anything to do with this." And he was like, "You're going to make $1 million in this building." I go, "Okay." And so they were offering, or they're asking 1.1 million. So it was about 30, it was 30 units. So 36,000 and some change a door.
That's great.
Yeah. Right. And that's super cheap now. It's changed. It's
Now you can't spend less than 100K a door.
on the low end, you're 60K a door, but yeah, I mean, the deals that I'm seeing are insane now. During due diligence, I found a couple issues, and I offered them like 950, and they came back at it, mil 50, and we settled at mil 25. So about 34,000 a door, which again, now I should have taken the 1.1 and ran before anybody else could have come in there. But, we negotiated it down to mil 25, and now I had my dilemma. I needed $205,000 down. I already budgeted. That's how much I wanted to spend, but I didn't really figure out where I was going to get it. I knew we had money traditionally. It's with everything, but I called my financial advisors, and I love these guys. We've been with them for 11 years now, 10 or 11 years now. Vallejo, love them. They're fantastic. And I said, "Hey, good news. I found a really good opportunity. Bad news is I need you to find me $205,000, and I want it to cost the very lowest amount it can cost. I don't want to play a bunch of penalties. Find me 205. Let's meet tomorrow." And they came up with, without paying penalties of liquidating stuff, we're going to do a HELOC. And I'm like, perfect. What's a HELOC?
Love it, man.
But it worked out perfect, right? So we did a HELOC. We thankfully at the time had like 60% equity in the house. So we did a HELOC. We had, I think it was like 210,000, and we got this thing done super quick. I think we closed, like 45, 50 days. Got everything set up. So now we got this building. I know I'm closing on it. Everything's, lining up. Now I had to figure out what to do. And so again, met with my mentor, and we decided that basement's a really good opportunity. Like, well, it's an eyesore, so let's fix it. So thankfully at the time, another mentor, Eric, guy I worked with for, Eric, a really long time. He's a jack of all trades. And I'd been working with him on some projects and watched how he GC'd all these deals. And I've been saving all the names, all the contractors. I got painters, I got drywall guys, I got framers, I got everybody. And it's the little things you pick up along the way that now I'm like, I was meant to do this. This is perfect. So in the 60 days, I set up a construction loan at the same time. I got a list of things together, met with my lender. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. I need 250 in a construction loan. And she's like, all right, tell me what you're going to do. Went through the list with her. We're adding 3 units. I tried to do 4, and the 4th one was too small. It'd have been like a
studio.
Yeah. Even the smaller one than the studio. Anyways, super, super small. And I said, all right, we'll do 3. And I told my wife, we're doing a construction loan. We're on a HELOC. We are in debt now. Like, this is real. I said, but I promise you in 12 months, I'm going to get this done. I have to get it done. We're going to do the construction loan. We're going to add value. It's all going to be great. I read this in a bunch of books. I've listened to podcasts. You just got to trust me.
Yeah.
And she goes, don't screw this up. Good luck. And we did everything. We put a new roof on it. We put in all new windows. The patios had double door 1920s, like literally horrible, maybe 60s doors, awful. We'd rip those out and put in some nice double hungs. In the basement, we added 3 brand new units that brought $300 more a door than the upstairs. And so we knew immediately, like we proved that there was a rent bump to be done in the building, let alone in the market. So got it all done. It took 13 months. I was a little slow, but got everything done. It looked great, happy. And we went to dinner to celebrate the project that, again, I'm doing my orthopedic job at the same time, like hitting quota, like working my ass off, running to Muncie 4 nights a week, checking on the project, On the weekends, running up with my oldest daughter to check on everything, dodging the homeless people in the basement. Like it was a lot of work. But we went to dinner to celebrate, and we're sitting there, and my phone dinged from the refi, and $250,000 came right back in my account. They covered the 205 from our HELOC. We paid the HELOC off. All the interest during that time is tax deductible, and we had a little bit left over, uh, just icing on the cake.
Boom, man.
And she looked at me and she goes, "Do it again."
You said, really? I'm sweating after all that. Do it again?
You need a timeout.
Hey, but that's called infinite return right there. And a lot of people don't understand that. But you essentially have no money in the deal, right? All your cash got pulled out and then some. You actually got paid on the deal. And you still own it.
Yep, still own it.
And the renters are paying that down. They're paying down your mortgage every single month.
Yep, we doubled the value of the building. I got all my money back out of it, and it's in infinitesimal returns. And so, for me, I learned very quick. That was another aha moment. Like when that happened, it was amazing. It happened so quickly. 12 months is quick in the grand scheme of things. I was like, if I can do this again and compound it, this is my track to definitely getting out of this business. It was pretty awesome. It was really, the hard work paid off.
Oh, that's great, man. Hell yeah. Good work. I mean, just sitting there at dinner. Hopefully you guys were at a nice dinner. I know you weren't at McDonald's, I'm sure. So
we were at Anthony's in Carmel, my wife's favorite. I had to suck up a little bit. It's been a long year. Yeah.
You're at the nicest steakhouse in town. That is amazing, dude. Good story. And did you underwrite for the CapEx that you had to put into it, the capital expenditures?
I did, but I knew very little about what the cost would be. The easy stuff is go to Lowe's, 3 fridges, 3 ovens, that was easy work. And then square footage for the LVP, easy. But there's certain things that you don't know until you do it. So, the roof, I budgeted, I think this was when rubberized roofs were super, super cheap. And I budgeted, I think like $50K. And based on the square footage, I was spot on. First phone call I made, $100K. I'm like, oh shit, like and we're in it. Like it's too late. Like, and it needed a roof really, really bad. And I wanted, knowing what I was doing, I wanted to have a bulletproof building that I didn't have to worry about. So, second call I made was $60K. And I was like, all right, this is a guy that was recommended to me. And yeah, it was perfect. But little stuff that I didn't really know. And so we came in right at the 250. I might have had to hit the hip a little bit. I can't remember. But it was real, real close to the commercial or to the construction loan. But you learn while you do it, like, all right, I'm making notes on, well, if you frame this out and you make a mistake, it costs you X amount of dollars to move it over 6 inches. I should have, in hindsight, the pipes in the basement that we connected to for the plumbing, I should have replaced those before I put everything down, because then think about, we're connecting to pipes that are 100 years old. So we've had to roto-root those things a lot. This last time they hit it was something, I forget the name of it was like the jackhammer, and it cleared it all out. So it's better now, but I should have just spent the extra 10 grand up front and done it right. So little things that you learn, obviously, but I got pretty close.
Yeah, dude, that's great. So yeah, Rod Cleve talks about seminars, right? Any mistake that he makes, he calls it a seminar. Did you have any major seminars with this? Anything that unexpected besides the pipes that you're talking about?
I got one. So like I said, we did new roof, new windows, new water heater. It fixed all the issues. The only thing we didn't change was the boiler. And we had it inspected, and the guy that inspected goes, "This thing's going to run another 100 years." Fuck that guy. We got a little bit out of the process when my wife and I were looking at, we were buying the school. And so, with the school, I scraped together all I had and then some. And again, I wasn't liquid at the time, right? Everything's in 401ks. And so we bought the apartment building. That was a HELOC. We took a little bit extra from that. And we started building a cash pile, if you will. And I still had my HELOC. We had bought a commercial or a rental property with 3 partners in Big Sky, Montana. And it was going fine, but then the school opportunity came up, which is a whole different story. But liquidated our share. We're buying the school, and when you're in the SBA loan process, you can't do anything. You are so handcuffed, or else you screw the deal and you got to start over. And right when we were just about done, getting ready to sign, the boiler went out, and it was it's a 1.5 million BTU boiler. It's huge. So,
I said, whoa, like I knew what that meant.
well, I didn't know what it meant either, but it was big. It was enough for 33 units. And they called and said, of course it's Indiana too, right? So it's 5 days before it goes from 70 to 20 degrees. So I had 5 days. It wasn't summer. I had 5 days. They just turned it on. That's what happened. They just turned it on and it was working fine. Then it took a shit. And so 5 days to figure it out. I can't use any money. All my money is tied up buying the school. I have no cash. And so I called my Vallejo guys and I'm like, hey guys, we're buying the school. I need $70,000 to fix this boiler issue. And they go, well, you got reserves, right? I'm like, yeah, sure. 10,000 in reserves, right? So lesson learned there. I thought I pulled some cash out of there to help with buying the school. I wasn't expecting a boiler to go down. So long story short, I called in a couple favors and I'm like, hey, I found these couldn't get another 1.5 million one down there. It's too big to go through the doors. And the second you take it apart to go through the doors, you lose your warranty. I knew I didn't want to do that. That's all I knew about boilers was I didn't want to lose my warranty on, all this money. So I got two 750K boilers from Tennessee. I paid a guy $1,000 on an IOU. I said, drive all through the night, pick these up, come right back. I called the install guys. I had them waiting there on the clock for this guy to show up. And we had like 24 or 36 hours to get him in the door and get him hooked up and get the heat going before, the cold front came through and froze all the pipes and, ruined life. I put 50K on an Amex card, which I didn't have 50K at the time because I had no money. I'm buying all this stuff. I paid the guy $1,000 in IOU, which I got him back later. He was super cool. And we got it done. They got one machine going before the cold came, got the heat going, and then got the second one hooked up. But I never expected that, right? Again, it's the bloody noses you learn seminars, and that was an expensive one. And I can smile now, but that was a horrible 5 days.
Yep. You got a few gray hairs in there. That's good though, man. I mean, yeah. Again, coaches can help you, tell you what they would do and all that, but until you experience it, you actually know what it feels like now. So they're mistakes that you won't make again.
I keep a lot more in my reserves now.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
You did all that while you were still doing orthopedic sales, correct?
Yep.
But in the meantime, while you were doing that, it sounds like you were in the midst of your next chapter, which was taking over the school, Leaf Spring. So I think that's even a bigger move because now you're losing the safety net of this job where you're making money, right? And you're just going to go for it at this point. You're like, all right, the real estate's going well. I'm going to go for it and take over the school. Tell us a little bit about that, your experience taking it over and what you learned along the way.
Yeah. So, to your point of the W-2, a really close friend of mine, someone that I respect very much, his name is Brad. We speak often, and he gave me advice very quickly when I was looking at apartment buildings. And I said, hey, dude, this is my way out. Like I figured it out. And he looked at me and he goes, don't forget your W-2. And I looked at him and just like funny, because I just told him something really cool and I was excited about it. And he goes, don't forget your W-2. Your W-2 is going to fund you through all this. And so, doing the apartment building and the second project, the W-2, I already told you, I had a newfound passion for the job. During all this, the year actually I bought the school was the year that I had put everything together and I got rep of the year, my last year in orthopedic sales. I never forgot the W-2. You have to show it a different level of respect. At least, again, this is the way I viewed things. But worked my butt off, looking into buying the school. And for me, it was, I've got two daughters. Now, fast forward, I've got two daughters, and they, you touched on this earlier. They know dad's not there. They know dad leaves every day, first thing in the morning, and gets home late. And for me, that was my hardest year in orthopedics. It was 2021. No, I'm sorry, 2022, because I bought the school in January 23. 2022. It was the hardest I've ever worked in my life. I'm juggling a couple different things and growing the territory. Had a really good friend of mine that had just left my territory for Charleston and left me in a hole. Kyle,
What an asshole.
yeah, asshole. But I'm working really hard, and my daughters were tearing me apart, begging me to stay home, crying, and I'd come home and I'd change, give them kisses, and I'd go to work dinner because there's always something going on. And so I found this opportunity at the school. I had asked this guy 100 times, sell me the school. When you retire, think of me. And he always said no. And so a partner and I looked into buying one in Carmel. Long story short, the day that deal fell through, I came home and I was defeated. I looked at my wife and I said, this other opportunity fell through. I wasn't as passionate about that one, but it was a way for me to be around my kids. I sat down at the dinner table and I was just completely defeated. And my phone dinged. True story. And it was an email from the owner that said, I'm ready to sell. I'm a religious person, but it was literally a sign from God, like, this is it. And we immediately met. I talked through it and I knew it was going to work. And so, in respecting the W-2, I met with my distributors before I even got close to closing the deal, against all advice from all my other guys. And I told them, I'm leaving. This is my next opportunity. I don't know if I'll be back, but I want to make sure this transition for you guys doesn't hurt anything at all. I love this team. I love this job. I love all my surgeons. This is my passion for my entire adult life. So I ensured that the transition would be smooth. We worked through it. We got the deal done. And I have been fortunate enough, taking the leap from me has changed my life forever. I've been fortunate enough to where I take my kids to school 4 days a week. On the other day, I don't do it. I need a little break in the morning. I'll get it. I think I'm like you, Kyle. I start my workouts at 5 o'clock in the morning typically. But on Thursdays, I like to come in a little slower. I make them breakfast and I go and do my workout. But taking them to school 4 days a week, I bring them home 4 or 5 days a week. I get to see them. I stop in and have lunch with them. I get hugs whenever I want. It's a lot of fun being a present dad. I was always present, but I wasn't present. Phone dings, email, you are a sales guy working in orthopedics, cases add on all the time. And the second you slip up a smidge, there's someone there working just as hard as you to pick up what you lost. And I never wanted to be that. So that has been the biggest thing, is being a dad that I always wanted to be. And now I can't. If I had boys, I might be a completely different person, right? We might own a monster truck store somewhere. This has been a really, really special opportunity. And with that, I have found myself really trying to become more a part of the community. I really love the parents that we serve. I know 95% of the kids' names. It's been a lot of fun doing this project and being a part of this community. It's been a lot of fun.
That's cool, man. It sounds like a big time passion. And to your point, you get to do it with your kiddos. That's really the most important thing, right? There's time freedom, but then there's, freedom with your family, which is the biggest thing. So yeah, you just touched on that. You, as a medical sales rep, you're in the operating room, earlier than the physician. You stay there later than the physician for the most part. You get calls. A doc says, "Hey, I'm adding a case on tomorrow." You're taking the trays up at 6, 7, 8 o'clock the night before. So you're always getting bombarded with stuff as a sales rep, and you're really not on your own schedule, right? You're on somebody else's. So your kids suffer, your wife suffers, your kids suffer. So now it sounds like you can take your daughters to school. You go on field trips. You drive the bus, right, to take them to the field trips.
Also, it's been a fun thing to get. I'm still in the group thread with all the old guys that I used to work with, and they're, "How's that bus going?" That's going pretty good.
That's great. Okay, what about your so personal life's good, family life's good. What about health? Do you feel like you're able to spend a little bit more time on your health? Because I know a lot of physicians or really anybody that's grinding, that's what they want ultimately is, can I do a little bit less time working so I can spend a little bit more time on my health?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of things that have been granted to me by taking the leap and taking the risk and stepping out of the W-2, not 9 to 5, the, 6 to 10 grind.
Yeah.
Being able to control my schedule for the most part has been awesome. And I find that even though I don't have to get up early, I like getting up early now. I get up early because I can do what I want to do. So I get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I either ride my bike for an hour, I'll lift, I do a cold plunge every single morning. And I'm a big fan of mental stress. And I mean stressing your mind, not of having stress. I love pushing myself a little bit every day. I've got a vision board, and on that vision board, it's do something every day that sucks, do something every month that hurts, and do something once a year that tears you down to the core. And I believe in you know making yourself better. And then when a bad day comes, it's not that bad. And I think it all comes back to focusing on your health, getting up, doing the things you want to do. Because if I do it in the morning, no one bugs me and I know it's on my time. If I skip the morning and then the day goes, crazy and I don't get a workout in, I'm pretty mad at myself for sleeping in for 20, 30 extra minutes when you can just get it done. But focusing on the health has been huge. I'm not a big lifter. I'm a big endurance guy. I really love cycling. Don't really enjoy running as much anymore, but just pushing myself as much as I can all the time has been a lot of fun, and having the time to do it.
All right. On that note, so I'm reading a book right now. I just started reading it. It's called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. Great book if you haven't read it. But basically, the title describes the mindset of most, if not all, successful people. And you really just hit the nail on the head there. So the full title is The Comfort Crisis: Embrace Discomfort to Reclaim Your Wild, Happy, Healthy Self. So it's basically about doing hard things, right? Getting out of your comfort zone. Tony Robbins talks about life begins outside of your comfort zone. So I know that you road cycle for hundreds of miles. You do the daily cold plunge, as you just mentioned. You hang out with screaming kids all day as your career. So that's a hard thing. The list goes on. What are some of the things that you have done that's hard, or that you'd like to do, that's on your bucket list maybe, or something that you have this year that you plan on doing?
Yeah, I think just in general, taking massive action, constantly pushing myself. I've done a couple half Ironmans, and I remember just again, like working out your brain muscle. The first one I did, it was awful. It hurt really bad. I trained all three disciplines like crazy. And I remember just being so fatigued on the run and just defeated. And I finished up with a respectable time, like 5:20. And I was so mad at myself. Like, why were you dying? Like, what was going on? Like, was it that hard? And so I kind of focused on a little mental toughness and started doing the different things, the cold plunges, the saunas, trying to reading the books. And then I trained for my second one. And 2 months before, I got in a car accident and it screwed my back up really bad. I went and saw a spine doc, and he's like, dude, you have to stop running. I got injected. MRI show, I can't remember exactly what it was now. Herniated disc and
L4, L5, L5, S1. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't wonderful, but it hurt enough. I couldn't run. It was excruciating. And so I didn't run for 2 months. And then the day of the half Ironman, I went out and did it. And I PR'd. And I ran 13 miles without having run in 60 days. And my legs went to concrete at mile 5, but I just ran through it. And the sense of accomplishments from doing that was huge. And I knew I had broken a barrier. And then I signed up for one more, Chattanooga. And I'm like, all right, if I can do this with no running, let's try no swimming. Like the biking, you got a bike, right? So I did Chattanooga with no swim and no run training. And I PR'd by another 8 minutes, like 5:11, which again, it's not a super fast time. But for me, it was just trying to see what I could accomplish without having to train and spend time elsewhere and still do it. And I think to just the question of, something hard, that's not a hard thing to do, but it was a hard thing for me at the time that I made easier just by, I don't know, working on my brain. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. Challenging yourself so that you can fight through whatever you need to fight through.
Yep. And again, you hit something bad happens. You get a flat tire, somebody quits. It's not the end of the world. You can work through these small things.
Yep. I love it, man. We're going to finish up with 4 final questions that I typically do on my podcast. Anything you want to add before then? any advice that you want to finish up on maybe for a young medical sales rep that is working hard and trying to find their way, or a young physician that, a lot of these physicians now are coming out of residency and fellowship, and they have tons of loans. Interest rates are high, right? So it's hard to buy a house. I think a lot of them kind of feel middle class, and they were expecting more when they got out, and they're not getting it. So any advice that you have for any of these young guys or gals?
Yeah, I'm not the smartest guy, but I believe in working hard, putting a focus, an emphasis on the three F's, right? Family, finance, fitness. I've heard of like people use four F's and five S, but for me, those are my three. If you can focus on yourself, focus on your family, and make sure you are putting emphasis on your career while looking at other opportunities, whether it's multifamily, single family, it could be another business that you never knew you were going to start, buying a business, but looking at opportunities and having an open mind. Be willing to look at your circle and find other mentors. Talk to people, ask questions. I went to an awesome dinner last weekend, and I talked to this gentleman for an hour and a half about his life and just how he looked at all these different businesses and basically turned over rocks to find gold mines. And his big thing was, you never know until you ask. And so I really like that a lot. But it doesn't happen overnight. You got to work for it. You got to stay consistent. Keep a focus on your W-2. I'm a big fan of mentors. I've said that 50 times tonight, but I think mentors have made a huge impact on my life. And I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for some of the gentlemen that I mentioned tonight. But, stay hard, work hard, and don't let the little things get you down, because tomorrow could be the next best thing. I said I went home and I was defeated at losing that opportunity, and my phone dinged. Like, your next best thing could be the next phone call away. But if you don't look for it and work for it, it'll never be there.
I love it, dude. Great job, man. A lot of good pearls there. All right, Justin. So in closing, I'd like to finish by asking my guest 4 final questions. What book are you reading right now?
Simplicity Parenting. Working on that one. That's obviously a personal thing we're working on with, again, trying to be better parents. Art of War by Sun Tzu. I've read it 2 times before. This is my 3rd lap. If you haven't read it, it's an easy read. Not easy read. It's a quick read, but you'll find yourself rereading pages over and over. But it's fitting for what kind of is going on right now. And then I just finished The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It was recommended by a friend, and I thought it was going to be cheesy, but I actually liked it a lot. Some good takeaways. Not at all what I expected it was going to be, but it's worth checking out.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually a great book. And The Art of War, I have had on my shelf for a long time, and I still have yet to read it. So, challenge accepted.
The first time I read it in one sitting. You can read it pretty quick, but you will find yourself rereading most pages just the way it's written. But I recommend people reading that one just because of, again, it's a mindset book, and I'm a big fan of mindset.
I love it. Yep, I'm definitely getting that one. What advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Stop going to the bar. Stop going out. When we were 25, my wife was hitting her stride pretty good. I was in business. I was working super hard, but we liked to go out on the weekends. We lived in Broad Ripple. We would, walk to dinner, walk out on Saturdays and nights, go grab drinks. And it was a lot of fun, but nothing that happened there besides good memories and fun times was anything that I use now. Anybody I met there is not, for me at least, is not anybody that I talk to today. The people that I talk to today are people that I surround myself with, success, positive stories, and are positive influences in my life. So, and really that was 10 years ago. I'm 35. And if I would have told 25-year-old Justin what 35-year-old Justin has accomplished, I don't know where I'd be today, but maybe it'd be here, maybe it'd be somewhere else. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it'd be single somewhere, no kids. But I highly doubt it. I think we would be living a completely different life still. Probably would have started sooner.
Yep, that's good. What is your definition of wealth?
Being able to put my family first, financial independence, to be able to put my family first no matter what. There were times where My wife and I drove separate to weddings, birthdays, Christmas, and I had to leave early. I skipped Christmas altogether. I had family at my house one year for an awesome prime rib dinner that I'd been working on for 2 days. And I had to leave before it was carved to go run trays and get ready for a case. And that's on Christmas. It's just the little things, everyone has hard jobs, and I'm not trying to say orthopedic sales is the hardest. It's not at all. But it definitely controls your time, and I control my time now.
Good. All right, this last one. This fourth question is a new one I came up with recently. I think it adds a little deeper understanding of why successful people do what they do. So Proverbs 11:25 states that a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. So if you could make a big impact by giving back, what would you focus on, or what are you doing now?
My wife and I had a similar conversation. We just went to Napa this weekend, and instead of watching movies on the flight or while we drive, listen to music, we intentionally played a 50-question game. And it was 50 questions to ask your spouse. And with that was a similar question. What would you do if you had like $1 million or something? I forget what it was, but the point of it was, how would you give back? A big part of what I'm trying to do in this chapter of my life is to give back to others. I've been a part of a hero cycling team for a long time. And you and I talked about this earlier. I just was added to the board of directors, and it's a really awesome group. They give money back for research. They have 3 pillars: support, prevention, and research. And I think it's really great being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And so part of what I'm trying to do in my next chapter is do that. I want to be able to give back to others. And so I'll be spending a lot of my focus on working on that foundation. But if it was any money that I could have to give to anybody, I would love to find a way to better support military veterans with PTSD. I've got a little brother who's an absolute badass, and he did 2 tours, and he's had a rough go. And these are people that changed their life for us overnight for wars in other countries, right? I would love to find a way to give back to military veterans, PTSD, and also spouses and children of veterans that we lost too early. So that would be something at some point in my life I'll find a way to do. In the meantime, I'm going to work on this foundation and do whatever I can to help.
Yeah, amazing. You definitely, when you put your mind to something, you go all in, which I love.
For better or for worse.
You'll get that done. You'll absolutely get it done. JD, always a pleasure, man. Loved having you on today. Just from knowing you over the years, you've been very motivating, and I think that you're a leader. You put in the work yourself, but I also know that you love seeing others around you succeed, which I love. You've helped me a ton over the years, so I really appreciate that. And you definitely bring a positive energy to most people around you. And so you're a light to everybody around you, and I know that everybody really appreciates that. So appreciate you being on the show. Anything you want to add? Where can people find you? Can people find you on social media, or where can people search for Justin Davis?
Honestly, if anyone's interested in talking to me, which if they are, I'd feel free to give anybody my cell phone number, my email address. Happy to help, happy to talk. I think the biggest thing for me is take the leap. If you've been on the fence, just jump. You will have seminars, you will have bloody noses, but take the leap. And then, for you, Kyle, kudos to you, man. I remember you and I talking, it's probably 3 or 4, maybe 3 years ago, and we started talking about Rod Khleif. And the next time we talked, you had a rental property. And the next time we talked, you had more. And and look at you now, right? I think this podcast is an awesome way to benefit, not just physicians, but also just individuals that are trying to better their lives. And kudos to you for taking your time to really get after it, to take massive action, and to try to help others. So this has been a lot of fun for me. I hope that I've provided some sort of value for your listeners, and I can't wait to do something like this again. Always have fun hanging out with you. Let's get a beer soon. Absolutely, man. Yep. We'll get this out there, dude. And I think a lot of people will listen to it. So thanks, brother. We'll talk soon. Cheers, brother. Be good. This is my time. I'm on the rise. Thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, please leave a review so our community can continue to grow. If you would like to stay connected or receive a copy of our free investing ebook,
please go to www.sharpinvestmentsllc.com, and that's Sharp with a P as in professional. This is not financial or tax advice. Please consult with your financial advisor or CPA.